welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something really fascinating, the real cost of living in Ho Chi Minh City.
Mm-hmm.
And our guide for this is moveandstay.com. They've been helping expats and business travelers find their feet in Asia for, what, over 25 years now?
That's right. Yeah, a really established resource. And look, if you're thinking about a move or maybe just a long trip, or even if you're just curious about this, incredibly vibrant city, understanding the money side is just essential.
Absolutely. And moveandstay.com, with all that experience, seems like the perfect lens to use.
Exactly. They provide that on-the-ground perspective that's so valuable.
Okay, so I think, like a lot of people, I've always sort of heard Ho Chi Minh City is, well, pretty affordable.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Right.
Compared to many Western cities, it definitely is.
But we want to get beyond that, right? Use moveandstay.com's knowledge to really dig into the actual costs, the nuances, what kind of trade-offs you might face. That's the mission today.
Precisely. Because while it is generally affordable, moveandstay.com makes it clear that what you actually spend really, really depends on your lifestyle. Big time.
Yeah.
Where you live, how you eat, how you get around, it all adds up differently.
Right. So let's get down to brass tacks then.
Yeah.
Based on moveandstay.com's insights, what's the sort of realistic ballpark figure for a single person's monthly budget?
Well, moveandstay.com suggests that around $1,000 a month is doable for a single person, but, and this is a big but, that's definitely representing a more, let's say, basic level of comfort.
Okay, $1,000. That's a useful starting point.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, for listeners wanting the quick takeaway, a comfortable life isn't totally out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
But what kind of lifestyle does that $1,000 actually buy you? Are we talking mostly street food, maybe sharing a flat?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? MoveAndStay.com's data points towards exactly that for the $1,000 mark. You'd likely be eating a lot of local food, which is fantastic, by the way. Using public transport, maybe living a bit outside the absolute center, or sharing an apartment. If you're someone who wants to eat out a lot, especially Western food, or needs those Central District amenities, you should probably be thinking closer to $1,500, maybe even $2,000 a month.
Right. That paints a clearer picture. It's a spectrum.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's drill down into what's usually the biggest chunk, housing. What does moveandstay.com say about rental costs?
They show a pretty significant difference, as you'd expect, between the city center and further out. In those central districts, like District 1, the average for a one-bedroom is apparently around $471 a month.
Okay.
But the range they give is quite wide, Could be $500, could be up to $800.
Wow, yeah, that's quite a spread just for the central areas. And if you look further out...
Then the prices drop, according to moveandstay.com. Outside the core, you might find a one-bedroom for between, say, $300 and $500.
That's much more manageable.
Yeah. And they also mention sharing, of course. Still a very popular way to cut costs. What's interesting, though, is they highlight areas like District 2 and District 7 becoming really popular with expats.
Oh, right. Why is that? Just cost.
Well, cost is part of it, sure. But moveandstay.com suggests it's also about lifestyle. You often get more space for your money out there. Maybe it's a bit quieter, a different vibe. People are looking for that balance, not just the cheapest option.
That makes sense. It's about the whole package. What about buying property? Is that even on the table for expats, according to moveandstay.com?
They do touch on it. Apparently, there's growing interest, partly fueled by foreign investment. Prices, especially in those prime central spots, have been going up. Key things moveandstay.com says to consider are obviously location, but also the specific rules around foreign ownership, which can be tricky, and, the future development potential of an area. It sounds like a trend seen elsewhere in the region.
Sounds complex. Potential investment, maybe, but not simple.
Exactly. MoveAndStay.com strongly advises doing really thorough research. Getting good legal and financial advice is crucial, especially in such a dynamic market. You want to understand exactly what you're getting into.
Good advice. Okay, moving on to something I'm very interested in. Food. What's the story there, according to moveandstay.com?
Well, this is where Ho Chi Minh City really, really shines for affordability. MoveAndStay.com highlights this strongly. Local food, especially street food, it's incredibly cheap.
How cheap are we talking?
And they mention things like pho or a banh mi, often costing less than £1
Less than a pound? Seriously?
Seriously, it's down to, local ingredients, low overheads for the vendors.
And I bet it's amazing, too, not just cheap.
That's the word on the street, and moveandstay.com backs it up. Great value, authentic taste. They do add a little note of caution, though prices might be a touch higher right in the main tourist hotspots.
Okay, fair enough. But still,
Wow.
What about sitting down in a restaurant?
MoveInStay.com gives a good range. An inexpensive local place, maybe around £1.60 for a meal. A mid-range spot, maybe a meal for two, could be about 19 pounds.
Right.
Western-style places will definitely cost more, as you'd expect. They even use the McDonald's McMeal benchmark, around £3.80. So the takeaway from MoveInStay.com is pretty clear. Stick to local joints if you're watching the budget.
Yeah, embrace the local scene, save cash. Makes perfect sense. What about groceries, if you prefer cooking at home?
Generally quite affordable too, especially for local produce. MoveInStay.com gives some examples. A dozen eggs for about £1.20, chicken per pound around a £1.40, beef maybe £3.90 per pound.
Not bad at all.
No. But as always, imported stuff, cheese, specific Western brands, that's where you'll see higher prices.
So hit the local markets.
Absolutely. MoveInStay.com really recommends the markets. Cheaper, fresher produce. Plus, they mention haggling is common, even expected sometimes, which can be part of the fun, right?
Definitely part of the experience.
And yeah, cooking at home, as MoveInStay.com points out, is obviously a major way to keep those food costs down.
Okay, covered living, covered eating. How about getting around this famously busy city? What does MoveInStay.com say about transport?
Right, several options. MoveInStay.com highlights the public bus system as the absolute cheapest. A single ticket is something like 7,000 dong, tiny amount. A monthly pass is around 300,000 dong.
That sounds incredibly cheap, but I imagine navigating the buses could be interesting.
That's the trade-off. MoveInStay.com acknowledges they can be crowded, and yeah, learning the routes takes a bit of effort. But for budget travel, it's the winner, and you definitely get a slice of local life.
Okay, what else? Taxis, ride-hailing.
Yep, taxes are everywhere. Starting fare around 19,500 dong. But MoveInStay.com notes that Grab, the ride-hailing app, is super popular, mainly because you get the price up front. Less guesswork.
That sounds useful, especially when you first arrive.
It is convenient for sure. But MoveInStay.com also points out, using taxis or Grab every single day, that cost adds up quickly. Then there's the third option, owning your own scooter.
Ah, the classic Vietnam image. Freedom on two wheels.
Freedom, yes. But MoveInStay.com calls it a double-edged sword. Great independence navigating those little alleys.
Yeah.
But you've got the cost of buying it, petrol, maintenance, helmet, insurance, and finding parking, especially downtown, can be a real headache. Plus, the traffic is intense.
So convenience versus cost and chaos. Got it. Okay, let's talk about those other monthly bills, utilities and stuff. What does MoveInStay.com indicate there?
For a typical apartment, maybe around 900 square feet or so, MoveInStay.com estimates basic utilities, electricity, water, garbage average about 2.2 million dong a month, roughly.
Yeah.
But they do say it varies with usage and apartment size.
And I'm guessing air conditioning is a big factor in that electricity bill, right, given the climate?
Oh, absolutely. MoveInStay.com specifically flags AC as a major driver of electricity costs, especially during the hot, humid months. Managing your usage is key, they stress.
Makes sense. What about staying connected? Internet, mobile phone?
Pretty reasonable, according to MoveInStay.com. Internet, something like 60 Mbps or more, unlimited data, might be around 245,000 dong a month.
That's good.
And mobile plans are even cheaper. They suggest a monthly plan with calls and say 10 GB of data could be around 150,000 dong. They mention providers like Viettel and Mobifone having good coverage, but yeah, always worth shopping around for deals.
That all sounds quite affordable, actually. And then there's just life stuff, toiletries, cleaning supplies.
Right, the miscellaneous category. MoveInStay.com suggests budgeting at least a couple of million dong per month for these kinds of things, but they emphasize it really varies from person to person. And their advice: probably best to overestimate this bit slightly, just to have a buffer for things you didn't expect.
Always wise. Now, a big one for some listeners, families, education costs. What does MoveInStay.com say about schooling for expat kids?
Yeah, this is where costs can really jump significantly for expat families. MoveInStay.com highlights that international school fees are generally, quite high compared to local schools.
How high are we talking?
They offer some figures. For international kindergarten, the average is around 6.5 million dong a year, but the range is wide, 3 million up to 12 million. But for international primary school, the average yearly cost MoveInStay.com gives is, wait for it, almost 360 million dong.
Wow, per year.
per year, with a range from 240 million up to 600 million dong. It's a huge financial commitment, as moveandstay.com points out.
That's a massive contrast to the other living costs we've been discussing.
It really is. And moveandstay.com rightly notes these fees can seem disproportionately high compared to local salaries. Their advice is definitely factor this in early, and if you're moving for work, try to negotiate an education allowance as part of your package.
Crucial advice. What about local schools? Are they a viable, more affordable option based on moveandstay.com's info?
They are definitely the much more budget-friendly option, yes. Moveandstay.com mentions this. The main considerations, though, are language instruction is primarily in Vietnamese and the curriculum will be different. But on the flip side, moveandstay.com frames it as a potential positive. It offers incredible cultural immersion for the kids. It's a way to really integrate.
A very different experience. What about childcare for younger kids? Nannies, daycare.
Moveandstay.com covers that too. Hiring a nanny is common. Cost depends on experience and hours. Daycare centers are another option, with fees varying by location and what they offer. And don't forget after-school activities, they add up that can be great for enrichment. The bottom line from moveandstay.com is plan carefully, research your options thoroughly.
Okay, we've hit a lot of the big cost areas. So pulling it together, what are some key tips from moveandstay.com for actually reducing costs day to day?
Well, they start with the basics, budgeting. Really track your spending, set limits, maybe use separate accounts, and crucially, factor in a buffer for unexpected things.
Standard good practice anywhere, really. What about finding deals specifically in Ho Chi Minh City?
Yeah, moveandstay.com suggests hitting those local markets we talked about, not just for food, but clothes too, and embrace the haggle. They also say keep an eye out for promotions in local supermarkets, maybe buy some things in bulk, and look for free entertainment parks, local events, that kind of thing.
And probably the biggest tip.
Live like a local. Moveandstay.com really hammers this home. Eat the street food, learn a bit of Vietnamese, use the bus or maybe that scooter carefully, shop where local shop, stay away from the obvious tourist traps.
Right.
And as they point out, it's not just about saving money, is it? It's about actually experiencing the real Ho Chi Minh City.
Absolutely. So, summing it all up, based on everything moveandstay.com tells us, it sounds like the cost of living there is, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You can live affordably, but it's all about the choices you make, finding that right balance for you.
Exactly. I think moveandstay.com's final point is spot on. Think about your own needs, your priorities, how willing you are to adapt to the local way of doing things. If you plan carefully, you can absolutely enjoy the amazing energy of that city without, breaking the bank.
This has been really, really insightful. A proper deep dive, thanks in large part to the detailed info from moveandstay.com, such a long-standing helper for people moving around Asia. It seems clear, doesn't it? An affordable, exciting life is definitely possible there with smart choices.
It does seem that way. And, thinking about moveandstay.com's long-term perspective, it makes you wonder, with Vietnam's economy developing so rapidly, how might all these costs shift in the next few years for short-term visitors using their site, but also for long-term residents relying on that kind of info?
That's a really interesting thought to end on. How will it all evolve? Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this gave you, our listener, some valuable insights into the money side of life in Ho Chi Minh City. Maybe think about what stood out to you and what other questions you might have if you're considering a trip or even a move there.